Okay, welcome everybody. It is 2 o'clock. Welcome to Cabinet meeting. Usual reminders, this is broadcast live via the County Council's website and archived so you can view it afterwards. Usual reminder to Cabinet members, microphones on and off so we can pick up what you're saying. Number 2, apologies for absence, we've none. Minutes. I move that minutes of the meeting held on the 15th of September 2017 be taken as read, confirmed and signed. All happy?
Agree.
Thank you. Urgent items. I've agreed to accept an urgent item concerning progress with the assurance of the Leicestershire Better Care Fund Plan 1718 to 1819 and the target for improving delayed transfers of care set by NHS England. This item is urgent because the most recent developments arose after the agenda for this meeting had been circulated, and I think it needs to be considered as soon as possible. Bearing in mind this is a very, very important extra item, with Cabinet's permission, I propose to take it first rather than last to reflect the significance of the item. So are you all happy if I take it first? Okay, thank you very much. So I'll take it very soon. So the next one is declarations of interest. We'll assume that all members who are also district councillors declare a personal interest in agenda items 6, 8 and 9 regarding the localisation of council tax and county council contributions, planning for the right homes in the right places consultation and urgent action taken by the Chief Executive to delegate adult social care functions to Blaby District Council in respect of the light bulb programme. Do we have any other declarations? Richard,
Chairman,
and then Richard.
I should just declare I belong to the ESPA Management Committee, but I'm advised that doesn't fetter my ability to take part in decision making here.
Super. And Richard?
Peculiar interest in item 11, HS2, and I'll leave the room.
Thank you. We have no others. Okay, so we'll take the first report, the urgent report, Cheryl and John. Cheryl's the Director of Health and Care Integration, and John is Director of Adult Social Care. Cheryl will speak first, then I'll ask Richard, Ernie and Richard Blunt as members for Health and Adult Social Care to speak. So over to you, Cheryl.
Thank you. Good afternoon. This report on delayed transfers of care and BCF plan assurance has been brought to Cabinet today in light of NHS England's insistence that all local areas accept the target of improvement as set out by NHS England by November 2017. If this is not accepted, the Council risks the BCF plan not being approved, escalation with NHS England and funding being removed from the Better Care Fund plan. Paragraphs 12 to 19 of the report highlight the financial plan for the Better Care Fund. This plan has already been approved locally for the period 17-18 and 18-19 and has been submitted to NHS England for regional and national assurance. Paragraph 15 highlights that 16.4 million of the 52 million total pooled budget has been prioritised to supporting transfers of care and reducing delays, and a total of 22 million across the Better Care Fund plan is used to support adult social care services, including those that relate to hospital discharge and reablement. It has not been made clear by NHS England as to the scale of funds that could be withheld or how and when this would take place. However, paragraphs 17 and paragraphs 36 to 38 indicate the potentially large level of risk this presents to the Council's budget. In paragraphs 24 to 32, we set out the process that's been undertaken so far in terms of the regional and national assurance of our plan. In all other respects, our BCF plan has been deemed to be compliant with requirements. Our BCF plan, however, will remain in the not approved category if we do not accept this target, and we expect a further letter from NHS England requiring a response by early next week on this matter. We understand the same correspondence will be sent to all councils who are in the same position, and we believe this to be approximately 18 councils. Given the increasing pressure being applied and the escalating scale of risk to the pooled budget, we've discussed this situation again with our CCGs and with the other councils in LLR. Paragraph 41 sets out the now difficult choice the Council faces, essentially between two unsatisfactory options. The recommendation is to accept the target, but with important caveats, given a clear risk remains that LLR partners likely cannot achieve this target by November 2017. The recommendations also include actions concerning the Council's ongoing engagement with the LGA and the County Council's network to challenge NHS England about this requirement, and also the pressing need for NHS England to provide clarity on the funding risks faced by councils, either now or post-November 17 in relation to the DTOC target. I'm now going to pass to John Wilson to summarise other key points in relation to the report, including the context of the authority's current DTOC performance and next steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Before John comes in, can you confirm, for clarity and for the record, what is the potential amount of money that this council could get taken office and given to the blooming NHS?
Whilst that's not been made completely clear by NHS England, options would be either the IBCF funding, which is the £9 million we received in the March budget, or if it's all the funding from the NHS into our pooled budget that relates to adult social care, that could be up to 22 million. But as I said, the rules for that have not been made clear as yet.
No, they don't appear to make anything clear, but what we can be assured of, that the numbers are absolutely of great significance to this authority. John.
Thank you. I'd just like to note for Cabinet what is, in my view, the perversity of the arbitrary target set by NHS England. As members may be aware, delayed transfers of care are separated into three elements: those that are attributable to the NHS, those that are attributable to social care, and those that are the responsibility of both. And locally in Leicestershire, we are in the position where the County Council is meeting the target for those which are the responsibility of social care. However, we accept that our NHS colleagues are more challenged in terms of meeting their target, and that's why we, as a collective system, took the decision not to accept the target, because we wanted to support the whole system to achieve the target in a manner and in a way which we thought was achievable and reasonable for the people of Leicestershire. By threatening to remove the social care element of the BCF, and as Cheryl said, that could amount to over £20 million, the local authority would be placed in a position where we would not be able to meet our statutory responsibilities, which would mean that we wouldn't be able to retain our level of performance on the delayed transfers of care. We'd have to significantly reduce our reablement capacity. We'd be very challenged in terms of meeting the needs of people in the community for domiciliary care, for residential care, nursing care. That would have the impact of, in my view, increasing the delays of people in hospital. At the same time, should that funding be then transferred to the NHS, we know that in other parts of the country where the NHS has tried to procure social care services, it's had a devastating impact on the local social care economy. Because what happens is that the NHS tend to procure at higher rates, they tend to spot purchase rather than have strategic contracting arrangements, which we've worked hard over the last 2 years with our CCG colleagues to develop. The position would be that there would be less capacity in the domiciliary care market. We would have less opportunity to purchase residential and nursing care as a county council. And it, in all likelihood, would mean that people would have longer stays in hospital. The other issue which is perverse is, in a sense, that NHS England introduced this target to try to free up acute hospital beds for the winter period, where we know there will be pressure on acute hospital services. But actually, in Leicestershire, our main concern is not in acute hospital care beds, it's in the long-term community beds. That's where our biggest pressure is for detox, where our performance on acute care is actually quite good. It's in the top quartile nationally. So our focus is on the community beds, where people have very complex needs, where it's often specialised care that's required for people, and that can take some time to achieve. So in signing up to the target, we understand that we may well come off the not approved list, but we will still have to address those issues which remain in the system, which is how we, as a health and social care community, can address the needs of people, particularly those people who have very complex needs, who will be in non-acute beds. Thank you, Chair.
Ernie, next.
Thanks, Chairman. We've been put in a position where, extremely reluctantly now, we have to accept this target being imposed in order to avoid potentially large financial risks, the scale of which have yet to be quantified by NHS England. It's beyond frustrating that we've been placed in the position, given our good performance as an authority on delayed transfers of care. The current national situation risks destabilising all our good local progress, and that really is regrettable because we've done such good work locally. And also remain concerned about the implications of if we fail to meet this imposed target by November. There's not much point in going on about NHS England. I think we've said enough. I think we're being the subject of just bad government, really. And I'll end by just removing the motion on the Green Order paper, Chairman.
Thank you, Ernie. Richard?
Thank you, Chair. Working with partners is always difficult, and the NHS have got their problems. We're heading towards winter concerns over how the hospitals will cope, and this is their way of tackling that problem, and it's very difficult for us. It puts us in a very difficult position. I'm as committed to working with our partners such as the NHS as much as anybody. I mean, that is what the person on the street would expect us to do. And when they talk about on the news, the NHS and social care, people just presume it's all one seamless service, and this shows that it isn't. But this is a pragmatic position we're in now, and I support the recommendation.
Byron?
Yes, this decision seems to have been taken at very senior levels in the NHS, and it could be counterproductive, as the directors explained. You could mess up the whole of the market. We could lead to reduction in funding and therefore an actual deterioration in the DTOC position. You can't think of anything more stupid. It's just incompetence by the senior management in the NHS. We'll have to agree to it, I suppose, but you really begin to wonder how much longer the Secretary of State can put up with this.
Or indeed how long we can put up with the Secretary of State. Anyway, it's a mess. We've got to move this. So it's been moved by Ernie, seconded by Richard. All in favour? Thank you. Thank you for your hard work, Cheryl. I understand that some of this came to you while you were actually on vacation. So thanks very much. Okay, back to the regular agenda now, which is Espo Trading Company Limited. This report relates to Espo and it seeks approval for the establishment of a new company called Espo Trading Limited. It follows a recommendation by the Espo Management Committee and senior officers of the 6-member councils. Chris, you're going to introduce it, and then Byron will speak.
Thank you. It's worth pointing out a similar report will be considered by the other 5 owners of Espo. In recent years, Espo has improved profitability and is on target to make a profit of probably well over £4 million this year. And you only need to go back 3 or 4 years and the profit was hovering around £1 million. And this is against the backdrop of very difficult market conditions in terms of a public sector that's got very tight finances. The establishment of this company will enable Espo to trade outside the public sector and hopefully increase profitability further. A summary of the business case is contained in the report, and the Espo Management Committee has received a very detailed business case in private and approved it. The recommendations are set out in the Green Audit paper and include both aspects of governance, including directorships and shareholder representative.
Great. Byron?
Yes, I'll move the recommendation on the audit paper. I mean, Espo now is turning into a very successful organisation. By creating this limited company, we'll be able to expand it still further. I think it's a very good move. I'm very happy to move the motion.
And I'm very happy to second it. I mean, Espo doing well is really, really good for us. The profits are recycled, and obviously an extra trading arm to trade with the private sector will be very useful. I have no other speakers, so moved by Byron, seconded by me. All in favour? Thank you, implementation of the Markets in Financial Instruments Directive, MiFID. Action to prevent the Council being adversely affected by the introductions of said directive. You're going to introduce it and Byron's going to speak to it. So over to you again, Chris.
This is a little bit of a technical paper, really, and it asks Cabinet to agree to opt up to professional client status so the County Council can continue to act as a range of financial products. And the failure to opt up will limit the returns from the Treasury management function, and also might actually mean we need to sell some of our financial products, such as the poor property funds we bought about a year ago. But by opting up, we do lose some protections that are available to the retail clients. They're set out in the appendix to the report, but I don't think there's anything to particularly worry about in that loss of protection. A couple of Cabinet members have asked me the background to the MiFID II, and I can confirm it is an EU directive.
Great. Well, Brexiteers don't like those. So over to you, Byron, a capital Brexiteer.
Yeah, it's just another thing we have to endure from this wretched organisation in Brussels. But this time we can work our way around it, and the measure that's been put forward in the resolution will do that. So I'll move.
Richard, not sure if you're a Brexiteer, but you're due to speak.
I will second the motion, Chairman, but without quite the level of invective of my colleague.
Okay, we have no other speakers. Moved by Byron, seconded by Richard. All in favour? Thank you, Chris. This next one's for you as well, Chris. Localisation of council tax support, county council contributions. I'll let you introduce it, Chris.
This report seeks Cabinet approval to make two savings, and both those savings were included in the current medium-term financial strategy. The first saving concerns ceasing the support of £125,000 a year we make to district councils for the administration of council tax. And this was brought in after the localisation of council tax support schemes were brought in back in 2012. The recommendation seeks approval for this to be ended in April 2018. It is worth pointing out that the administration of council tax is clearly a district function, and that districts do receive £560,000 in grant to fund the administration of the council tax support scheme locally. The second element of the saving is the contribution we make to the hardship fund, and the hardship fund is there to provide relief to council taxpayers who've fallen on hard times. Over recent years, the funds operated by the district councils have provided only limited awards of about £100,000 a year. And this is far less than anticipated when we set the scheme up, which probably reflects the strength of the local economy. Having listened to the comments of the district councils, the report recommends actually carrying on the contribution to the scheme back to 2019. And it's worth noting it doesn't follow that the scheme will necessarily end in 2019. And at least one district council has already confirmed that they'll continue the scheme even after we've cut our funding to it.
Byron.
Yes, I move this motion on the Green Order paper. I think the advantage of what's happened is the county council, I know that the districts have to get together to do what they could to smooth the introduction of these new measures a year or two ago, and it shows by the success that, particularly attributable, I think, to the skills of the revenues and benefit officers in the district councils, that the funds have not been drawn on to the extent to which was originally envisaged. So I pay tribute to them and also to their management and the fact that they have been able to reduce the costs of the implementation. But now the money is no longer needed, and so this is an appropriate measure to take.
Richard.
Thank you, Chairman. Second that and warmly support all my colleagues' comments.
Thank you. Well, it has been moved and seconded. I suppose the only comment I could make was if they wanted the biggest saving, I would imagine, would come from one central collection authority rather than 7.
I think you're probably right. At the moment, there's 7 separate collection authorities. If you brought them all together, there could well be efficiencies. Although 3 districts have already kind of do combine them together already.
Good. Well, they're halfway. Okay, so we moved by Byron, seconded by Richard. All in favour? Thank you. Are you done now, Chris? Very good. Lonic next then. So this is developer contributions towards county council services. It's an update, 59 to 64. Provides an update on concerns raised previously that the council's reasonable expectations of receiving developer contributions via Section 106 are being met, given demands such developments have across the county. I know Ivan's often been mentioning this. I welcome the constructive comments received from Dr. Inan, leader of the Labour Group, and they are constructive, attached to the order paper mark 7, and I thank her for submitting them. It's nice to have comments from the real opposition here. Lonic is going to comment, and then I've got me. Lonic.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, this is the regular monitoring report you get on Section 106 developer contributions. You'll see from the report at paragraph 11 that the value of agreements entered into can be quite significant, £80 million over the last financial year. And if and when development commences and implemented, then there's a stream of income which can also be significant. And again, in the last financial year, about £12 million came in. In most cases, including planning appeals, the County Council's requests are generally supported and meet the CIL criteria. So therefore, overall, the progress is fairly good. However, in a small number of cases, issues around viability in particular, I think on the next item you'll see that the government is concerned about viability issues. And also, some authorities do not accept the County Council's case for contributions. And those are set out for you at paragraph 16 and 18. And that's really all I've got to say, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Lonic. Well, I shall move the motion that the update now provided be noted and that progress on developer contributions continue to be monitored. And I'll call Byron.
Yes, I'm very happy to second that. You know, it's very difficult to understand the logic of the people in the district councils who, on the planning committees, that might resist imposing these developer contributions. They were well thought out by professional people. They're needed to support measures like highway improvements and that sort of thing, which will facilitate the infrastructure and the delivery of housing and other development. And one wonders just what logic can be applied by people second guessing those recommendations. But anyway, we're making progress, and I'm happy to support the motion.
Good. Well, my view is if they argue that it's not viable to make the contributions, they shouldn't damn well pass the application. That'll be the simple way, because it's of paramount importance we get money for schools, roads and stuff like that. So if developers are saying it's not viable, refuse it. Anyway, it's been moved by me, seconded by Byron. All in favour? Thank you. Tom, afternoon. Planning for the right homes in the right places, consultation response. The papers are 65 to 74. Seeks approval of the Council's response to the Government's consultation, planning for the right homes in the right places. Tom's going to introduce it. Tom.
Yes, thank you. Earlier this year, the government published the Housing White Paper, and that set out four main areas of action for the government. One of those being planning for the right homes in the right places, and the consultation paper that the report considers sets out proposed measures in relation to that area of activity. And this report proposes a response to that consultation. The proposals in the consultation paper are summarised in paras 15 and 16, and are then described in more detail and responded to between paras 18 and 46. I'll just touch on three of the proposals briefly. One key proposal is that the government establishes a standard method for calculating future housing need to underpin the allocation of land in local plans. The proposed response in the report is to welcome that, but to request that its introduction doesn't undermine or delay the vital work that's been done locally on the Strategic Growth Plan, which is looking ahead to 2050 in terms of future housing provision. And the response also stresses that the standard calculation should be a starting point, because we would need to take into account local economic growth, infrastructure capacity, etc., before finally deciding the scale and distribution of new housing. The proposed response also welcomes the government's proposal that statements of common ground be agreed by local partners working across housing market areas on strategic planning work. It's noted also, it's noted, however, in the proposed response that the government is a key partner in ensuring sufficient homes are provided locally, in particular through infrastructure funding, and it should consider how it can also formally commit itself to supporting that local work. And finally, in terms of planning fees, the proposed response notes that the County Council plays a key role in relation to waste management, highways and the provision of construction materials, all key to housing provision, and that the government should recognise that additional planning fee income is required to resource these key services. The consultation paper doesn't cover those issues at the moment, and the recommendation to approve the draft response is as set out on the order paper.
Thank you, Tom. So, just for clarity, there's no consultation on whether or not we can have an increased fees. I know districts are going to be allowed an extra 25% on their planning fees. Are we not being offered anything?
No, that's right, we're not.
Doesn't seem remotely fair to me, Tom. Anyway, I'll move the recommendations. Byron?
Yes, things aren't always fair, are they, towards that? I'm happy to support this and to second it. A slight reservation in paragraph 35 of the paper, which is under the neighbourhood planning, where the government's proposing this formula-based approach, apportioning housing need figures in local authority areas to neighbourhoods by percentage of population. I think that could be too rigid. If Leader, we could agree to say something like that as an additional response, that would be, I think, would make me happy. But I'll second the motion anyway.
Would there be any problem with that, Tom? And also something about fees we could put in. I mean, if everybody else is allowed to increase fees, why can't we say we want to increase fees? The more money we can get in, the more money we've got to spend. And it is, we're doing the work, and the developers and applicants are more interested in a decent performance than they are in particularly not paying any fees.
Certainly, we could look at both of those issues, and the recommendation includes that the Chief Executive, in consultation with the Leader, would look at any minor amendments to this report. So we could look at both of those issues in that context, and we've got until the 9th of November to submit our comments in any case.
Well, in that case, I think we're okay. I'll undertake to, in liaison with the Chief Executive, to mention the fact that we want an increase in the fees and the point you made.
Yeah.
Are we all happy with the recommendations plus the bits I've said? Thank you. You're done then, Tom, are you? Delegation of adult social care programmes to Blaby District Council, the Lightbolt programme. Urgent action taken by the Chief. John Wills, I'll let you introduce it, John. It's pointless going through this.
Thank you. So as Cabinet will be aware, the Lightbulb programme is an award-winning example of good integration happening locally in Leicestershire. The Lightbulb programme is hosted by Blaby District Council, and following a successful pilot has been rolled out across all districts from the 2nd of October of this year. As part of the end-to-end process for the housing support, a number of functions that are currently the responsibility of the County Council need to be delegated to Blaby District Council on behalf of the Lightbulb programme. The County Council has currently and has previously awarded contracts for a community assessment and home improvement to 2 agencies. Those contracts will be decommissioned and those services and functions transferred to Blaby District Council. The specific duties to be delegated are outlined at paragraph 19 of the report and include carrying out assessments for minor adaptations, prescribing community equipment, provision of information advice and other services which would prevent, reduce and delay the need for social care services under the Care Act. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Richard?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. This is a good example of us working with partners for the benefit of the wider community. We're keeping people independent in their homes, preventing and reducing the need for care home placements and other social care services, and avoiding unnecessary hospital admissions. So it's really very important, but also it's making the service easier to access and navigate, and that's actually very important as well. So it's a really good piece of work. Lightbulb project is very good indeed. I'm happy to move recommendations item 9 on page 3.
Thank you, Rich. Ernie?
Very happy to second, Chairman.
No further comments? All in favour? Thank you, John. You're staying put then, John. Draft Leicestershire and Rutland Carers Strategy 2018 to 2021. Over to you, John.
Thank you. The report seeks approval to consult on a new carer strategy for Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland. The current carer strategy was agreed and put in place in 2012, with some minor amendments made in 2015 at a time when government were consulting on a new national strategy. Despite that consultation over the last 2 years, no national strategy has been forthcoming, and we understand that one isn't imminent. But we do believe that we need to put in place a new strategy for Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland to support the continued integration of health and care services and to ensure that carers have the right support locally. There are around about 70,000 carers estimated to be in Leicestershire, including 3,500 young carers. And we estimate that between them they are providing the equivalent of over £1 billion worth of care every year to friends, family and other loved ones. It's worth noting that the Adult Social Care Outcomes Framework measures how well care and support services are provided to both service users and to carers, and there is a biannual survey of carers, the last one of which was completed in October 2016. We surveyed over 900 carers and received over 400 responses. And the responses that we got suggested that whilst the majority of people were satisfied with their overall level of experience of social services, and over half were satisfied with the services they receive, there were concerns about having a less positive experience in terms of social contact, in terms of having enough time for themselves, for carers, and having enough encouragement and support to carry out the caring activities. So this draft strategy has been developed using the outcome of that survey. We've also engaged over the summer with over 300 carers across Leicestershire to ensure that the strategy that we are now producing is co-produced and is meeting the needs and requirements of local carers. As we went through that engagement process, we identified a number of areas where we could, as a council, improve our carer offer immediately without recourse to further consultation. So there are a number of actions that we could take internally within the council which would improve the carer offer. So we're also requesting Cabinet approve those actions to be taken ahead of the full consultation. The consultation itself, the consultation document, is appended to the report. Subject to approval of all partners, it would be intended that the consultation would run for a minimum of 6 weeks from late November through early December and into January. And a report will come back to Cabinet in March next year. Thank you.
It's an excellent piece of work. This is John. Over to you, Rich.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think in the middle of what John said, he mentioned that really overall we didn't feel we were performing well enough in our support for carers, unpaid carers. And in fact, he and I have covered it in our briefings recently. And this is our reaction to it. This is, and I think it's summed up nicely in paragraph 51, 52 on page 88. The vision is to engage with our unpaid carers of all ages, to be identified, feel valued, respected and supported. It's plain English, and then it goes on to more detail. Carers have to have a life alongside caring. Many things that we just take for granted. Carers feel valued and involved. Carers, a carer-friendly community. Carers and the impact of technology, supporting young carers. It's common sense, and we haven't been doing enough. But with this document, I think we'll be much better placed. So I'm happy to move recommendation item 10 on page 3.
Very good. Ernie?
Yeah, important piece of work, Chairman. Formally second.
No other comments. Moved by Rich, seconded by Ernie. All in favour? Thank you, John. Richard's now going out while we talk about trains. Okay, thank you. Delivery of the Leicester and Leicestershire Rail Strategy, including HS2, seeks approval of the Council's response to the East Midlands Rail Franchise consultation and sets out the effect of the Department of Transport's recent disappointing announcement of the cancellation of electrification, to say the least. The report also seeks to reaffirm the Council's position regarding the new confirmed route for HS2. Can it be noted that again we've received comments from the Labour Group, the official opposition. They're attached to the order paper marked 11. Anne, welcome Anne. Our new Director of Environment and Transport will introduce the report and then Blake will speak to it. So over to Anne.
Thank you. Yes, a lot has been going on in terms of rail recently. In terms of those government announcements and also building on the rail strategy that Cabinet approved in February, that sets out the context for a proposed response to the East Midlands Rail franchise consultation, which is appended as Appendix B, and this report seeks approval for that response to be submitted. In terms of those announcements, the Secretary of State announced in July the cancellation of Midland Main Line electrification north of Kettering. And, you know, as the leader has indicated, the report recommends Cabinet expresses regret at that cancellation. And at the same time, then, we seek to make the case with DfT to reverse that decision and seek assurances that there will be no detriment to Midland Main Line services. Government's proposal, instead of electrification, is to introduce bi-mode train technology, which it believes will actually seek the benefits or achieve the benefits that electrification would without disruption. However, it's fair to say that the industry is sceptical about that technology, bi-mode trains, being able to achieve the benefits of electrification. Also in July, the Secretary of State confirmed the preferred route for HS2, and through Leicestershire, what that meant is the lines shown in pages 149 and 151 of your papers. For the section by Kegworth, that was very much as was consulted on in 2016. For the section around Measham, it actually took us back to the 2013 consultation route with a slight amendment by moving further 80 metres further to the east, which means 80 metres further to Measham itself. The impacts of that change are summarised in paragraph 43 and include impacting on the Ashby Canal restoration and a specific development in Measham as well, the wharf development. A further issue about the electrification cancellation, it potentially jeopardises some of the benefits of HS2, because even if we achieve a classic compatible link, which is the facility to take trains between the main line, Midland Main Line, and the HS2 line, it's unknown if that bi-mode train technology can actually operate an HS2, and at the moment it looks as if it can't. It's unproven technology. As such, the report recommends that Council continues to support its position for HS2, subject to the original caveats we set out, which are Appendix C for your information. One of those I would just point out was no deterioration in Midland Main Line services. Again, this is very much focused on Midland Main Line services. When franchise consultations come forward for the other key services such as West Coast Main Line, we will obviously engage to seek benefits for the areas of the county that particularly impact those. The second recommendation was subject to satisfactory outcomes of discussions with DfT on Midlands Mainline electrification and achieving that as far as Towton. And also reassurances around that classic compatible link between Midland Mainline and HS2 at Towton. One final bit of information on that. Cabinet may have picked up, Chancellor made a speech at conference last week and referred to £300 million worth of investment in rail in the north, but he also alluded to benefits for the Midlands. We've had clarity from Department of Transport on that, and what that means is the bill going forward for HS2 will also seek powers for that classic compatible link. What it does not mean is that ultimately that will get built, but that was a piece of further information I thought it was worth sharing with Cabinet. Final recommendations on the report are to continue via the hybrid bill process to achieve the objectives of the rail strategy. And last one, that actually the Council reviews its position on HS2 depending on the position we get to when that hybrid bill is submitted, expected 2019, and or any outcomes of discussions with DfT and Midland Main Line.
Thanks, Anne. Blake?
Yes, thanks, Anne. So as Anne has identified, the report focuses on three substantive issues. Predominantly, it's to do with the East Midlands franchise consultation response. The East Midlands franchise consultation, actually, some of the proposals play into Leicestershire's favour, I think it's fair to say, and we're broadly satisfied with the proposals, and our response will respect that. The other two issues, the HS2 rerouting, obviously there have been some tweaks there, and of course the electrification issue of the Midlands main line was subject to a very good debate at full council, where the whole council unanimously supported a recent motion. You've referred to, Leader, the comments from the Labour group. I'm unsure whether they're actually from the Labour group or Sean Sheehan in his own capacity. Nonetheless, the final paragraph to those comments welcomes the Council reviewing our position on HS2. What we're actually saying at this point in time is we will continue to support HS2, but subject to a few caveats, and we reserve the right as a Council to review that, and we'll bring a report back through Council, or Cabinet rather, if things change in that respect. The only other two things I just want to draw to Cabinet's attention is firstly the timetable in relation to this consultation. I believe the consultation for the East Midlands mainline franchise finishes today, the 11th of October, hence why the report's coming to the Cabinet without going to scrutiny first. And the second point I want to draw to Cabinet's attention is the resource implications. Clearly HS2 is becoming very intensive, and whilst the route goes through Leicestershire, our officers are heavily engaged in some of the mitigation and other aspects in relation to HS2, and that does have resource implications on this Council. But apart from that, Leader, I'm very happy to propose all the recommendations on the Green Order paper under item 11.
Yeah, great. Well, I'm going to second them. To clarify, we do have comments from the Labour group, which is from Dr. Einan. They're on Labour group headed note paper. And then we can assume the ones, I suppose, from Sean Sheehan are Sean Sheehan's comments. So we do have official comments from the Labour group, and then other comments from Sean Sheehan, who's the local member for Measham, I think. Is that right, Chief?
I believe so.
Yeah. Anyway, we've got the recommendations here. I'm happy to support them. And also, again, to place on record how disappointed I am that we're getting so-called bi-mode trains. As we've already said, they're clunky, they're heavy, they're slow, and they're smelly. And we expected to be treated better when the day after cancelling our electrification, they can find 25 billion for Crossrail. I was exceedingly disappointed, and it's on record. So, having said that, I'll second. Anybody else? All in favour of the recommendations? Thank you. Agenda item 12, items referred from overview and scrutiny. We haven't got any. And I dealt with the urgent item urgently because it was urgent. So with that, we're finished, are we, Chief? Thank you very much.